Avatar: The Last Airbender was added to Netflix on May 15th, 2020, and with it came people being able to go back and rediscover their love for the series, or in some cases, take the journey with the Aang gang for the very first time. It was the #1 trending show in the US on Netflix for at least 2 weeks after its release. People were able to binge the whole show in quick succession, and for some, it left them wanting more. Luckily for them, there's a sequel series that follows the next incarnation of the Avatar, a water tribe girl named Korra. Despite the love for Avatar: The Last Airbender, this series has been received with less than equal enthusiasm. Now, with the news that The Legend of Korra is going to be added to Netflix in August, I wanted to share my experience with the show and hopefully persuade you to give Korra a chance, because no matter what a great number of people say, I think that The Legend of Korra is just as good, if not better, than Avatar: The Last Airbender in some points during the run of its show. So, this is why I think you should watch The Legend of Korra. Mild spoilers for all books ahead. So, I want to examine some of the main complaints and criticisms of The Legend of Korra and try and give my opinion on the matter. So let's just start with the biggest complaint of all: Korra as a character. Many people have problems with Korra for one reason or another, but many people don't care for her because, simply, she is an Aang. Aang was a pacifist, gentle, and carefree monk that had a close connection with the spirit world, and because of this, had a close relationship with the Earth and all of the previous avatars when he needed guidance. Whereas Korra is a brash, arrogant, and foolhardy with great confidence in her bending skill, but with little connection to the spirit world. In a sense, Korra forging her relationship with the spirit world and her interactions with it is the overarching theme of the entire show. While Aang had to master his bending in order to fight the Fire Lord, Korra has already mastered most of the elements when we embark on this journey with her. Only airbending and her connection to the spirit world are what are left for her.
Hey, why all the doom and gloom, people? We should be celebrating. 3 elements down, 1 to go.
You're getting ahead of yourself as usual, Korra. We haven't decided if you passed your firebending test yet.
Ever since you were a little girl, you've excelled at the physical side of bending, but completely ignored the spiritual side. The Avatar must master both.
I haven't ignored it, it just doesn't come as easy to me.
Korra being arrogant and always looking for a fight, in stark contrast to how Aang, in many ways, it gets Korra into trouble because she can easily get caught up in these situations and it is too much for her to handle. But that is essential to her character growth. She begins the series exuding confidence in order to hide her insecurity of not really knowing how to bring balance to the world.
How am I supposed to save the city when I can't even learn airbending? I'm the worst avatar ever. I just feel alone.
And through each loss she gains humility and respect for the challenges that the Avatar has to undertake. Which brings me to another aspect about Korra that many people aren't fond of. She loses. Quite a bit. Some people see this as her being an unfit avatar, that she is just constantly getting her ass handed to her by the bad guys, but as I said earlier, it is just a path for Korra to grow as a person. All this accumulates in probably the best moment in the entire series where, after defeating the main villain of Book 3, Korra is left broken and exhausted, unable to find the strength to keep fighting, becoming almost the sole driving force behind Book 4. And her coming to terms with the fact that she isn't an invincible being simply just because she is the Avatar. I won't spoil it, but the emotional weight behind this beautiful scene is it's really incredible. And just look at this animation, it's jaw-dropping. Each fight is smooth and elegant, and it just looks amazing. Just look at the expressiveness on these faces. And this is only episode 1. Take these pro-bending sequences, for example. Yes, there's pro-bending now, and it's awesome. It is a whole new take on the way that we have seen bending being used, and it's a great example of world building. 70 years have passed since the ending of the Avatar: The Last Airbender, and just witnessing the progression of the world and its culture is satisfying. While I do admit that it goes a little bit off the deep end near the ending of Book 4, but I guess I can forgive her for that. The introduction to Republic City is good evidence of this. A city that Aang and Zuko created in order to join all benders and walks of life into one place is just another example of how far the world has come. Speaking of world building, while Season 2 is usually regarded as being the weakest of all the books, which I do agree with, there is a 2-episode span where we get a flashback to the very first Avatar, and I found it to be an excellent way of giving more depth to the world and adds an immense amount of weight behind the rest of the books. But I'll get to that later. And sure, would I have liked to have seen more and got more information about the lives of the previous Team Avatar? Of course I would have. If anything, that is one complaint I have about the show, is that we get very little knowledge of the lives of our previous heroes and where they have ended up. But it isn't their story anymore, and if I really wanted to find out about what happened to them after the show, I could just read the graphic novels. But the new Team Avatar is great. Pro-bending brothers Mako and Bolin are a great pair of characters. Bolin filling the comic relief role and Mako kind of being the moral compass of the group. I don't want to say that they're filling the Sokka and Katara roles because they are much more than just a retelling of those characters. As well as Asami, a brilliant scientist and engineer. And of course the rest of Korra's support team found in Tenzin, the son of Avatar Aang, and Lin Beifong, chief of police and daughter of Toph Beifong, and many other characters that we meet along the way.
The new Team Avatar!
We got your back, Korra. And we can save the city together.
Yeah, let's do it.
One aspect that I think that Korra does better than The Last Airbender is its villains. Sure, we all know that Ozai was a comical, mustache-twirling villain, being evil for the sake of evil, and that Zuko was the real antagonist of the show, and following his journey to become a good guy and joining the Avatar team. The villains of Korra all have very compelling motivations, to the point where you can agree to what they're trying to achieve, it's just that their methods could use some work. Amon is trying to seek equality for all non-benders, believing that benders can leverage their power in order to be more successful in life, but he does so by stealing the bending ability from people in order to try and make everyone the same. Unalaq from Book 2 is just trying to achieve balance with the human and the spirit worlds, but he does so by trying to unleash the spirit that embodies darkness back into the world. Zahir from Book 3 just wants freedom from oppression for all the people of the world, but he goes about this through anarchy and chaos. And finally, Kuvira just wants to unite the people of the Earth Kingdom back under one banner, but she does so through subjugation. All of these characters have relatable and even somewhat noble goals in mind. They just manipulate their power into harming others, and that's why Korra has to stop them in order to keep balance in the world. Now, there's a part in Book 2 that I feel like I have to bring up, but it contains some pretty major spoilers for the season, so if you haven't watched it yet and don't want to be spoiled, just skip to this part of the video. You have been warned. I brought up earlier a 2-episode flashback that occurs in Book 2 where we learn about the first Avatar, Avatar 1. In this flashback, it is revealed that the spirit world and the human world used to coincide with each other. Not saying that they lived in harmony with each other, but they weren't separated like we have come to know them. We are introduced to two spirits in a constant fight, Rava and Vatu, essentially just embodiments of light and darkness. Wan mistakenly sets Vatu go, and now evil spirits are roaming throughout the spirit wilds. Wan and Rava go on a journey for Wan to be able to wield all of the elements that are given as gifts by giant lion turtles on which different nations live on their backs. He is only able to wield one element at a time, and Rava needs to pass through him in order to give him use of the different elements. During a harmonic convergence, basically just the planets aligning, Vatu is at his strongest, and this is when Rava and Wan have to stop him. Eventually, Rava completely merges with Avatar 1 and they become one being, creating the Avatar cycle. Wan was responsible for the unbalance of the world, and he made it his mission to try and bring it back into order. Cut to present day, and we get probably the biggest complaints that I see about The Legend of Korra is that in the season finale of Book 2, Unalaq, who has merged with Vatu at this point, pulls Rava out of Korra and attacks her, severing her connection with all of the previous avatars. And yes, I totally understand where people are coming from here. There is a part of me that wishes that this was retconned so that Korra had her ability to speak with them. And it's not because I'm too attached to Aang or anything, I just feel like the previous avatars was a great writing tool used whenever the current avatar needed advice that the people around them may not have been wise enough to lend them. It is nice to have a near infinite amount of characters that you could pull from to add different perspectives to the situation. But at the same time, I feel like it would weaken the stakes for the remainder of the story. We already had Ammon's removal of Korra's bending retcon because she gained access to the Avatar state. I don't think that it would be good for the same thing to happen in the very next season. This also puts Korra into a unique position. She is just like Avatar 1, where she has to essentially do things on her own and learn from her own experiences. She is now the beginning of the new Avatar cycle, which is an interesting idea. Altogether, I am torn on how things turn out, but I do think that it could lead to some very interesting stories, if not in a continued Avatar installation, at least in a graphic novel. Look, I was in middle school when The Last Airbender aired and ended, and I was in college when The Legend of Korra aired. Unfortunately, I had always heard that Korra was much worse than The Last Airbender, so I never really sought out any episodes to watch. I may have seen an odd episode here and there, and just went along with everyone else saying that it was bad because I had no context of what I was seeing. I only watched it for the first time recently because I got to rewatch The Last Airbender, and it left me wanting more. So I decided that I was going to make up my own mind on whether Korra was actually just a waste of time and cheapens the original series. And clearly, I love Korra, so I don't want the same thing to happen to you just because you might hear that the show is bad. Korra is a great addition to the world of The Last Airbender. It gives some great insight into some of the characters that we have come to know and love from the original series, and while, in my opinion, we don't get enough information about their lives after the original series, it is just great to get little hints and nuggets of their lives sprinkled throughout Korra's journey for peace and balance in the world. I didn't even get into some of the most compelling stuff that happens in Book 2, where all Aang's kids go on a search party together and we get to experience their different relationships with their father.
Kaya's right. You're the oldest of us, but you always acted like the youngest. I had to become the responsible one.
You think you're the responsible one? Where were you after Dad died and Mom was all alone? Because I was the only one who packed up and moved my whole life to be with her.
Sure, after years of flitting around the world trying to find yourself, it was time for you to settle down somewhere. You two have no idea how it feels to have the future of an entire culture on your shoulders.
Oh, boo-hoo. Must have been real hard for you, flying around the world with Dad riding elephant koi all day.
Oh, so that's what this is all about.
That's what it's always been about. You think you're some savior who has to carry on Dad's legacy.
Who else is going to do it?
How about all of us?
Yeah, we're Aang's kids too.
Korra is full of little instances like that that really make the world seem alive. And if what I have said so far hasn't convinced you to watch Korra for her story, at least give it a chance to learn more about the original characters. The creators of this world, Michael DiMartino and Brian Kinezzo, really have made something special with these two shows. And they have the ability to write any story that they want given the Avatar cycle and new types of heroes being able to have stories made about them. And I think that the stories have only gotten better with experience. I truly do believe that Book 3 of The Legend of Korra just might be the best story we have ever seen told in this universe. I know that this conversation has been being made since the first episode of The Legend of Korra has aired, but I just wanted to add my voice to the discussion. If you watched Avatar The Last Airbender on Netflix when it was recently added, then please do yourself a favor and at least give The Legend of Korra a chance. I've only just scratched the surface of the things that can be found while watching The Legend of Korra, and I think that you should experience them for yourself. And that is why I think you should watch The Legend of Korra. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. I know that this isn't something that I usually do, but with the new season of Korra coming out, I just wanted to throw this out here. And I want to apologize for not making any videos recently. I've just been really busy. I've been focusing a lot on the podcast that I'm a part of, Geek Tavern Podcast. You can find a link for that down in the description. And just let me know what you guys think about this video. I'm thinking about making more type of stuff like this, so let me know if you enjoyed it. And as always, thank you for stopping by.